What's up, y'all? Sorry it took me so late to get up so long to get on tonight, man. A lot of things going on out here. It's been tough out here. Let's see. Get the Instagram going. Give me a few minutes. We're gonna jump right in tonight. How y'all doing out there? Anybody with me tonight? My friends was just and I ain't had but I told them it's a process. This got to be built. It don't just happen. But people always like things to be instant. Oh, we gotta fix this camera. Uh-oh. Well, paused. What's up, y'all? We getting the camera fixed. Okay, that's much better. Hey, Mel, how my camera look? I still feel a little crooked. Hold on, man. Nothing's ever perfect. Okay. Okay. All right. The glasses give author vibes. Okay. Thank you for the compliment. After you was tearing me up in the group chat, though, you thought I forgot about that. Oh, all my blankets in the background. My kids did not do their responsibilities. Y'all kids don't be skipping their chores, man, or is that just me? I couldn't get away with some of the stuff they get away with. I'm gonna have to start parenting like my mama did. Romero, what's up, bro? Okay. Okay, we looking good tonight. All right. Y'all like the shirt? Actively Black. Make sure you check them out, bro. Black on. They get their cotton from black farmers. It's like a full black what's it called? Supply chain. All right, and this shit dope. Look at that flag. That's the whole Pan African flag right there. I know some of y'all weirdos don't like Pan Africanism or whatever, but yeah, that's check that out though. Actively Black. Normally, most of the stuff I wear is black on. I'm one of them. Like I'm committed to it. So except I wear J's, and that's not technically black on. And it's hard for me to find black on shoes that I like. If y'all know any dope black on shoe companies, put me on. But my jewelry, except for the watches, sometimes I get those. But I normally buy them from BIPOC. But yeah, they're not always black on. But most of my shirts, pants. But if you got sock and underwear companies that's black on, let me know because I want to get on that too. I'm always trying to support the people. Ooh, we popping tonight. Okay, thank you. So oh, thank you. Yep, black art too. See, thank you, Midnight Metaphysics. That's a dope name, by the way. So let's jump right into it. Where do we start? What's going on? We could talk. We already talked. I think I talked this ad nauseum at this point. The whole death of checks and balances with the SCOTUS decision in the birthright citizenship. I saw that a federal judge in New Hampshire blocked that order nationwide, which is crazy, right? Because it's like if basically the Supreme Court has been cracking down on the lower courts, saying that the lower courts can't impede executive action. So now you have a lower court that's kind of stepping out of line, saying they found another avenue to try to slow this down. And I think this just signals the weakening still of judicial oversight. Like the Supreme Court is losing respect. Ultimately, they'll probably have to come down on that judge. I forgot the name of the process, but they actually could censure that judge for being out of line with a federal decree. But I'm interested to see how this plays out because I think history is going to remember those people who said even if the Supreme Court is aligned with erasing democracy, I'm not going to go for it. And nonetheless, we are seeing the end to that constitutional balance, and just that system of checks and balances is eroding, right? So before we go into that, my sister Inika Williams, she's a education professional here in Florida, in Tallahassee, where I'm at, and my brother Chuck Hobbs, in his observation report, she published an interesting editorial, and it was based off some statistics she had shared earlier, where they were looking at in the state of Florida, and y'all tell me what it looked like in y'all state, but they looked at third grade uh, reading levels. And for the state of Florida, man, I think we were, for Black Americans, foundational Black Americans, whatever y'all want to call us, right? But Black Americans, we were at 45% of our third graders were reading at a third grade level. Whereas for, I think, Indigenous or Native Americans, they were at 54%. For Latino Americans, they might have been at like maybe 59. I don't have it in front of me right now. White Americans at 69, and Asian Americans were at like 83%. So those statistics were startling. I think they reflect a trend that's been worsening since the pandemic. In most areas, Black academic performance was increasing from 2010 to 2019, but we saw it flatten during COVID. And those numbers haven't recovered yet. And I even remember when I was talking to our local here in Tallahassee, I was talking to our superintendent of schools, and he was cataloging a lot of the stuff, the initiatives that they had been putting in place since he had been in office in 2016, and how it was having gains. And then he felt that COVID kind of wiped a lot of that out. And I talked to other people in education, and they said that one of the big issues that they're having with Black youth is absenteeism, and that it's hard to, since it was already hard to get Black kids to come to school consistently, but since COVID, people were missing, completely truant, and just missing school at unprecedented, alarming rates. And it makes you wonder what happened to a lot of our families, what happened in a lot of our communities, what kind of structures broke down, and people just gave up on education. Another thought that came out of this discussion was, who's at fault for Black communities to be performing so poorly academically? Like, if only 45% of Black third graders could read at a third grade level, whose fault is that? Hey, thanks, Nick Bangs. I appreciate you. Who's at fault? Talk to me. I want to hear what y'all think. I'm not moving on from this subject. This is too important. 45%, the lowest in the state of Florida. I imagine in other states, y'all gonna see similar results. Tell me, who's at fault here? How do we, give me something? So I think it's easy to blame the parents. That's what most people want to do. They say it's parental involvement. And I think that's a part of the problem, but I think that's not a holistic look. Kendake Wallace says Cosby said who it was in his pound cake speech. Yeah, Cosby was one of those parental accountability folks. And I think parental accountability is a huge part of it. But can that account? Do you think every other racial group is better parents in terms of education than Black Americans? Because that's what I feel that argument is the ultimate conclusion, right? That Black people care about literacy and education less than every other grouping of American people. Is that the case? Is that what y'all seeing out there? Black parents are just like, I don't care if my kids can read. Talk to me. They don't care? Or do they not have, is elementary school, I'm sorry, is this issue starting in pre-K? Because when I look at the research, is saying something different. When you look at the documented research on this, the studies, they're not saying that. First of all, we know Black parents are actually very involved with their children. But what we find when you look at it is that parental involvement, it comes in two primary forms. There's parents with their expectations, and then there's parents in actually teaching their children. And those two have differing impacts on children's academic performance. With the parents just believing and setting higher goals for their children alone, that has more impact than parents actually trying to like drill their students. And another study I was looking at today, they found, and this was a meta-analysis, they looked at hundreds of different studies over the last 30 years, and the trend they found was that for different groupings, for different racial groupings, parental involvement has different impacts. So again, and I shared this with some of my colleagues, and they was like, "We don't care what the research says." And as soon as they get you to say that, when you be like, "My anecdotal thoughts are more important than the research," I think that's when you got to take a step back and see if you're being objective and if your emotions may be clouding your judgment. Because I know, like I remember my mom had me in the library, first, second grade, right? Um, my mom had me in the library. We was reading books when everybody would be outside. My mom would be like, "Hey, Bruce, come on in here. It's time for reading." And as long as far as I can remember, I remember my mom reading to me. But my mom was also college educated and came from a middle class Black family that had, owned property and owned businesses in Altadena, California. My mom was at Howard University when she had me. So I had a different experience than some youth who parents may have not had that setup in those situations. But yet and still, parental involvement plays a major role. But what happens if we just go household by household, it's going to vary on whose parents could do what. And that's why I will argue, and people may disagree, that this is a community issue. It's collective. And that it couldn't be solved at an individual household level. If we just say every parent go home and read to your kids, I don't think we would close the gap that way. We would have to put collective community programs in place to address this, focused on literacy, focused on education, and that's not easy. I got friends, homies who are literacy teachers, and what the research has shown us again when we talk about this, and what I've looked at is that if you don't start off from the jump, from and not just in pre-K, I'm talking from the time when the child is in those first years, year 1 and 2, getting them introduced to literacy, then you're gonna run into problems right away. They start off behind, and what a lot of the research suggests is that Black kids start off behind when they get into kindergarten. And by the time they get to third grade, the gap has grown. And then each year, the gap, the disparities between them and the other counterparts start to grow even further. Ooh, okay. My sister Dakibra, she says, "What would a program look like?" All right, so I don't think there's a one size fits all, Kibra. I think that you're gonna throw different things at it, right? So definitely, the first thing, and this is something we'll be talking about here in Tallahassee, that we're going to try to address this, is we need to start benchmarking, right? And we have to get racialized statistics at a micro level. So we need to want to know in our zip codes here in our local communities, how are Black kids performing on their what are the literacy rates looking like in this particular zip code versus this zip code? So then we can analyze and say, well, what's different here? Is it different poverty levels? Is poverty accounting for it? Is there more parental involvement? So we need more research at a micro level. A lot of the research is looking at statewide or national patterns, but I think you have to get down to a micro level and set benchmarks to say, this is the specific problem in these neighborhoods. And then you address it that way. The kids don't have books. The kids don't have electricity. Is it a nutrition issue? Are there too many absentee parents? Do we need more mentors in this area? It could be different because it's an assortment of challenges that the community is facing. And what I suspect, what I hypothesize is happening, is that people are getting caught up with different factors in different regions. So is it Has the child had access to pre-K? Was there enough funding in the Head Start programs? So I think that's where we start, is identifying, um, identifying what the challenge is at a local level. My sis Mel says, my parents didn't read to me, but I was a standout student as a child. I read to my kids and they struggle. I see parents just shoving an iPad in kids' faces and it's nothing educational. Ooh, okay. Two statements we got to deal with. Okay. Mel, I think you make a great point, right? Your parents didn't read to you and you excelled, but when you read to your children, they're still struggling. It's not, again, while introducing literacy is important to orientate them to it, even reading a book to a child, just so they can see you reading and building that practice is important. Hey, what's up, Lean Bean? But that's important, Mel, but it's not the end all be all, right? There could be learning delays, there could be different learning styles. It's all these factors. So it is important for us as parents to get our kids acclimated to education, acclimated to literacy. But this is where our specialists come in, and this is where culturally relevant practices are so important. And DEI, like diversity, equity, and inclusion in our academic, in our educational workforces, are critical, right? Because my wife is an educational professional. She's a school counselor. My best friends, my mom, my grandmother. I come from a family, like education is our thing. This is what we do. Everybody around me is tied to education. At HBCUs, that's one of the things that we produce best is educators. So we have to build localized systems that are focused on improving or closing the educational gaps that we're seeing in those communities. So here in Florida, it looks like reading is a major issue. Now, my sister, again, she just made another point. She has to pay for her kids to get the help they need. If she didn't have money, her kids will be left behind. And then we have somebody right after her saying we can have 1 million programs, but the parents aren't taking advantage. So both of these statements can't be true, right? Sometimes program access is a challenge. For example, I run with my good friend, soon to be Dr. Camille Lewis, my bro Frankel St. Louis. We run a program called Brilliant Resilience, and through it, we bring youth into the program. And what we're running into is that parents want their children to participate, but they can't get them there, right? They want their kids to reap the benefits of our program, so we have to go and pick the kids up, and it's stressful. It's hard. Like we have to buy a bus. We going through the community making pickups to get the kids there, and we got to feed the kids because they got to eat, and some of our kids don't have food at home. So, and then we have, we're served even still. We can't get to everybody because the funding isn't there. But we give as many free spots as we can away, and then we have a waiting list that's always 10 to 20 kids long. And I know other people who got similar programs, and they are at capacity also. So I find it hard to say parents aren't taking advantage of the programs. Parents do not have access. Now, there are bad parents out there, and I'm not excusing that behavior, y'all. But I think access is a huge issue. Our program is on a college campus, so the parents who could drop off, they can, but sometimes they need help. So we've been trying to establish a carpool system where we will actually compensate parents who participate, but that takes funding. And you saw what the government just did to all the funding sources, right? So now we are dependent on support from our donors and from out of our own pockets. And that's an ongoing challenge because we all have children, we got families, we have to eat, we got to pay bills also. So the system is part of the problem. But tell me, what other solutions y'all got? Because my solution is parents don't come to open houses, don't make friends with other parents to do the carpool. Yes. So now, Ren, you make a good point. This goes back to my argument, and I talk about this a lot in my book, By Any Dreams Necessary, that our communities are lacking in social capital, right? That we when we need to have social capital development, and this is community networks and systems put in place that people don't necessarily have to pay to participate in. It's built on trust and reciprocity, and that if we could build those systems and those networks like you're suggesting, Ren, then you get more positive behaviors out of your community. All right. And then my bro just said, bro, chill. When white people work against us, how do we do it? I mean, they always worked against us. That can't be our excuse. I feel you though, bro. I'm not dismissing what you're saying. They've always worked against us. There's always going to be a contingency of white folks and their black allies and their Mexican allies and their indigenous allies working against us. But that can't be an excuse for us not to do the work. We just have to get smarter. We have to be strategic. We talk all the time. What sometimes me and my team talk. Am I sharing too much? Am I, because we like to promote what we're doing and get more people to replicate the process, but then sometimes we don't want people to know what we're doing because we scared they might come and try to shut us down. So we have to balance that. How much do we want to promote about what we're doing versus how much do we want to keep it to ourselves? I see that Tulsa massacre. We could come back to that, bro, because that's related to that. As we build stuff, outsiders will come and try to destroy it. But we have to build intelligently. We have to build strategically. And it's always a chess game, and you can't never stop playing. And I don't think we can live with that fear that if we do something, white folks gonna come tear it down, because it don't always even be them. Sometimes it be our own people tearing our stuff down. So go back to Kendake Wallace says go back to traditional African oral learning systems rather than written. That's an interesting one. I'm gonna I'm going to say I don't know enough about I know traditional African learning systems. I don't know how effective they would be in our Western context. And when we think about the purpose of education and how we use it in the West and surviving in this societal context, would that be effective? Not saying it wouldn't. I'm saying I haven't seen the research. Not to say that the research doesn't exist. That's just not something that I have done the research on to see how effective that is. I know that's your area though, so I would love to hear more what you've seen there in terms of, do Black children learn better in those oral contexts? I know that there's a lot of research that shows Black boys learn more when there's physical activity involved, and I would love to see, how do you teach reading and physical activity? But you see what's happening here, even in this discussion now, as we drilled down and said, this is the problem in the Black community. We're being unapologetic and we're saying we're going to solve the problem for Black boys and Black girls, especially. Even there, you might have diverging approaches to how you do it. But now we're starting to get somewhere because we got us under the microscope and we're looking at it at a lens of solving it and not just saying, look, these people have a problem, and not waiting for someone to come and save it. And I think that is a part of how we start to address this, right? But this is what I would love. This is where a lot of the research at our HBCUs, those that are still standing and haven't been compromised, this is what a lot of the research should be looking at when people doing them EDDs and they publishing these articles. I think a lot of the research should be on, how do we address this issue in the Black community? Like, is it really parental involvement? How much of a factor is that? I would love to see some multiple linear regressions models that isolate different variables, because I think if we're gonna say that, then we need to be sure. I don't think you could just throw that out there that it's parental involvement and that is the main factor in why Black youth aren't performing. I think that could be a factor, but there are ways we could do the research and get some quantitative data and see, is that the primary factor when you control for the other variables. If we remove poverty, right? And just look at it like that, with parental involvement, is that still an issue? We could equate those and analyze it. And there's people better trained to do that than even myself. But I definitely want to get my hands on a lot of that research. What's when we have culturally relevant learning practices, do we get the outcomes that we want then? Right? When we have teachers Oh, my sis Camille. This is Dr. Camille Lewis, y'all. This is my sis right here. She says it's a combination of several factors, which is why we need several solutions. And that's our approach and how we do things. We don't believe you could just have a one size fits all solution, because even in the Black community, they are facing different challenges just from zip code to zip code. A lot of the same, but there's different variations. There's environmental factors in literacy scores that we were discussing. People don't know about that, but for example, exposure to lead, exposure to particulate matter has been shown to impact your academic performance. When we talk about just proper nutrition, we got kids living in food deserts, right? Eating Takis for breakfast. How do you think they're going to perform reading when they had Takis for breakfast in the 3rd grade and hot chips? There was a shootout last night. My father has been arrested. All these different adverse childhood experiences are going to have a direct impact on the child's academic performance. So multiple issues. The services that we create have to be relevant culturally and locally, right, to what's going on. And that's why I said one thing we'll be asking our district to move on, and I hope my bro from the school district hops on to hear this, because we're going to be making a hard push, and I might lose some friends that I got, some political friends and alliances I got, but I think we have to put people over politics here. This is a major issue. We're declaring it a state of emergency, so we need the school district to give us the data, and to anyone who's running for office for local school board, and y'all should do this for y'all at too, they need to be answering this question. How are you going to close this gap? If they can't give you an answer, I don't care if your pastor said vote for them. I don't care if it's your mama's friend or if they from the same political party as you. They not fit for the job. So my sis says the reason she originally left public education and went to community work, the issue wasn't getting solved in schools. There are so many other issues that need to be addressed for schools to be successful. And that speaks back to what we were talking about earlier, community programming. You have to address the whole child, as they say. You can't only address their reading practices to address their overall test scores. Teaching to the test, that you might get the better school grade at the end of the day, but it may not solve the problems. And community issues, I believe, are the bigger problem. And that's why at the beginning I said this is a community issue. It's not something we could solve at the individual's household level. And it's not something that I don't think even raising teacher pay, which I think is a part of the solution, is not going to solve this disparity that we're talking about with Black children's reading scores. And I see you, Jose. Thanks for coming through, man. What's your question? What is the teacher professor ratio stats, Black versus white? Okay, good question, right? I know I'm thinking back to, and I might have some of this in my book. I go into demographics in Black education in my, let's see, what chapter was that? Yeah, I look at a demographic assessment of Black America, and I do talk about Black education very heavily. And I know that there is a huge issue for Black people getting access to Black teachers. And I know that the majority of Black students will not have Black male teachers. They will come across Black women, but coming across Black male teachers is rare. And that's a challenge. The quality of their school also for Black children is an issue. Access to early childhood education. Do they have access to certain math classes? And also, again, pre-K, another huge issue. But so Rand said I had Black pre-K teachers. Shout out to FAMU. That's why HBCUs are a gem, and we have to fight to defend them. And that moves us on to the next topic, right? I said earlier in the live, one of the things that pre-K does, I'm sorry, HBCUs do best is they produce educators. Um, oh, you want to talk DEI? Give me a minute. I'll come back to DEI in a second, bro. Um, HBCUs produce educators, and in fact, that was some of their original purpose, to produce farmers, agriculturalists, industrial workers, and educators. If you go all the way back to Booker T. Washington. Um, so we see this. I think Will Packer put the call out maybe about a couple months ago when FAMU was recognizing that there was a hostile takeover happening. And I think we have to do better to defend our institutions. But then my sis, who's here, we always raise that question: are they actually our institutions? When you become a state school, when you are dependent on state funds, and that state is Alabama, or that state is Florida or Georgia, you know what I mean? Like, should we not expect certain outcomes when we know what these states stand for? So that is something to consider. Bro says, literally out of all my history teachers throughout the 5th and 10th grade, none of them knew about the Tulsa massacre. Yeah, man. It's interesting. Black history is treated as something that's kind of like offshoot. It's treated as something specialized, and it's not expected to be understood by the general public. Ask your question, sis. Ask your question. We're not ducking no questions up here. It better not be about work though. No work questions while I'm on a live stream. You got to say that for the work chat. All right. While you work on your question, I'm gonna look for some other questions. We don't want to do community-owned schools. Why not, Rand? I'm not opposed to community-owned schools. I think that's a critical part of the approach. Community-owned, community-centered, cooperative schools. Yeah, cooperative, community, collective. I definitely think that's the way to go. I understand you not saying private. The question though becomes, where are some successful models that we could? Oh, I got you. Yeah, where are some successful models of people who doing that, and we need to see that so that we can replicate it. My family had a private school for Black kids with special needs in Altadena. I've seen, here in Tallahassee, we had the Sakar Youth Institute, and most of the children who went there are brilliant. We have Brownsfield, which is private, and but you think it's the Black capitalists' fault that we's behind? I don't know about that. I don't know. Okay. So here we go. Here's Dr. Camille Lewis's question. There's a theory that public schools are typically filled with the large majority of white women. That is correct. I heard on a podcast that recruiting Black men to be teachers is putting them in a hostile situation and could be dangerous. To have a large Black male in a room or building full of white women, what are your thoughts on this? Should we continue to push Black males to go into education? Black males are always in dangerous situations. That's a part of our reality here in the West. And I think we need to put them in those situations, but we need to prepare them. And that's where I think for example, I had this unique class that you could only get at HBCU. It was called professional development. But what we actually learned in that class was how to exist as Black people in white workspaces, and what to look out for, and how to protect yourself, how to build relationships with other Black people in the workspace. That's something you wouldn't get anywhere else because no one else is thinking like that. But we would have weekly speakers coming back saying like, hey, I work in this industry and this is what's happening to me. So this is how I've dealt with that problem. I always thought that was a beautiful experience that I had. And with that, I say that to say that we have to prepare people to go into dangerous spaces like that, Camille. I don't think we can shy away from it because we definitely need Black men in the education field. Now, do we need more Black men in executive positions and Black women in executive positions to help protect our people who are there? But as long as our children are there, then we need Black men there. So, yeah, it's if we gonna have our children there, Black men can't be scared to go into those spaces, even if there is that it comes with a risk. So I hear you. I recognize that danger, but our babies is in there. So who gonna protect them if not us? So again, you train people to go into dangerous spaces. They just need to be prepared, know what the risks are, what the threats are, and how to navigate. And again, I still believe we are fully equipped to prepare people to do so. We just haven't made that a focal point because I don't think education is not glamorous. Like nobody, like they don't get paid a lot. It's a labor of love, and it's actually service work. I think educators are some of the greatest activists in our country because they clearly not in it for the money. Those who are doing it to fidelity, they're doing it because they have a passion to make change in our society. And I think history will be very unkind to us in how we treat educators as a society. And when we say, like, dang, why do we have all these problems? Why does our country just seem to be falling apart? At the root of it is how we treat our educators and the lack of respect we show them. What else y'all got? Let's see. More questions, y'all. Y'all don't even stay in the household, so why y'all want to be in the schools? Boy, oh boy, the ignorance never stops. This is clearly a person impersonating a Black person on my live. I'm not going to respond to your question because it's ignorant. You should go read a book, dummy. All right. You have to make a welcoming and safe space for Black men to be. I hear you. I know that's what we want. That is how it should be, but we also have to prepare people for how it is. I think you said you've heard horror stories from every single Black man that you know who worked in K through 12. I think that's true, right? And again, I think that we need to have forums, we need to have networks that for Black people who are going to be educators, we need to prepare them to go into the field. Like, you got to put your armor on. People going to be coming for you. People going to be threatened by you. The same way we have to get Black people to talk about how they interact with the police. I understand what you're saying, but I don't think if the Black babies are there, the Black boys are there being prepared to go to prison, right? Then we can't stay out of it. So people have to get into education however they want, or we have to create the mentoring programs like everybody is, not everybody, but a lot of people are doing. And I think that's another effective approach, that we could create those spaces outside of school, but then that goes back to that access and getting the parents to participate, which is a challenge. So, but like you said, multiple approaches, multiple solutions. Out of school time is critical. What you do over the summer, what your children are doing on Saturdays. Now, DJG says, I think with so many white women leaving education, there may be an opportunity for Black men and Black women to get in there. I think that with that happening, Kibra, with the DOE cuts and them pretty much defunding public education, I think there's a lot of opportunities for us to get back on our education game and start turning around some of these disparities that we're seeing. But I think it goes back to what Ren was saying earlier, that it can't be a capitalist. It can't be a capitalist approach to education. But Ren, how do we, you help me answer this. How do we keep our programs running effectively without having some profit generating tendencies to ensure their sustainability. We don't even have to call it capitalist, but we need to generate profit to have fiscal sustainability. And that is the conundrum that we often find ourselves in when we try to create community programs. So she says profit generation is fine if it goes back to the neighborhood that it educates. Okay. So you for micro capitalism, not just macro capitalism. Got you. No, I'm playing. Okay, you're not. I know you hate capitalism. I know. I'm messing with you, sis. All right, y'all. I was supposed to talk about a whole bunch of stuff, but we got stuck on this education topic because it's so important. Like 45%, only 45%. That means 55% of Black kids in Florida in the third grade cannot read at a third grade level. You know what they do with those third grade reading levels and test scores? That's how they determine how much funding they're going to put into the prison industrial complex. I'll never forget. I was visiting a relative. He was at Corcoran State Prison. And I remember, I was maybe in the 6th or 7th grade at the time. And it was a poster on the wall. And it was like, hey, parents, and it had a Black person on the poster sitting behind a jail cell. And they said, when we plan how to fund our prison system is based off third grade reading scores. And I was like, that stuck with me because I had always heard my mom and grandma talk about it, but to see the poster on the wall in the prison, like advertising, like your kid's going to end up here if you don't teach them how to read. And it was really hostile how they did it too, but we'll talk about that in a whole nother live, like the impact of having family members in prison, the impact that mass incarceration has on us psychologically, the shame. I think go back and revisit that new Jim Crow. Yeah, Camille, that was real. I remember that. So Keeper says maybe we go old school with volunteers and bartering. I hate to say this because I don't believe people should be required to give skills for free. Psychological warfare. Yes, you're right. That's what that was, Mel. But back to what you're saying, Keeper. No, people can't give things for free. People can exchange, but that funding issue is a challenge. I think with this new wave, if public schools are on the way out, right? Pete, and I believe in public education, but if we lost that battle, do we stay there and just keep trying to fight for public schools, or do we have to make the adjustment and say, okay, if private school is the way that they're going, vouchers, do we need to get access to vouchers for our kids and educate them on our own and pay our own educators and teachers to do so? And be like, since it's a voucher program, okay, so we get our own schools and we use the vouchers. Hold on, let me see what Ren and Mel. I need to see what the socialists think about that. They might. Ren says she about to crash out. We about to get in trouble, Camille. She said she gonna crash out. We keep talking this vouchers and private education stuff. They don't want to hear it. Hey, the Brilliant Resilient School is coming. Now I'm not taking money for it yet because we don't have a full plan in place. It is a dream right now, but we gonna get this done by any dreams necessary. So it's coming. We got some work to do. Dang, Camille, we wasn't ready to put that out yet, man. What you doing? See, now they calling me Dr. Umar. Y'all cold-blooded. Nah, bruh. I won't ask y'all for a dime until we have a full business plan in place. But then if y'all don't give me the money, I'm definitely going to be like, oh, y'all could buy grits. Y'all could buy perm. Y'all got on new J's, but y'all can't give me the money for my school. I felt Umar on that, but I do think bro need to get that school open, though. I think that school would be valuable. It's crazy. When he came to when Dr. Umar came to Tallahassee, I talked to him about it, and like who he is on the internet is not who bro is in real life. It's a weird thing. And when I talked to him about the school, like he gave me some what at least sounded to be valid explanations for the delay. And that he said he was working on it. So, but that was like maybe a year and some change ago, but I haven't really followed up on, because I personally did not donate to support that, because I was like, I'm gonna build my own school, but I wish bro all the success. But I know it's a challenge, and I hope he's successful, because it looks, I know, I imagine if he really is not like a scammer and a charlatan, then I know he has to be frustrated. I don't know, man. I don't want to just discount the brother. I just think that he may be running into logistical challenges, and I think people aren't cutting him no slack, and that's why I personally wouldn't take that money up front, because I wouldn't want people saying, "Well, where's the school? Where's everywhere I go? I can't go anywhere without y'all asking for the school." So let me and Camille get the school together first, and then we gonna ask y'all for the money. Y'all not about to do me like that. All right, y'all. Let's see what else we got. Let's talk about some other stuff real quick. I already argued with about Haitians being black and Jamaicans being black and Africans being black, and I'm tired of arguing about that, because that's what they call it, low vibrational discussion to me. But it is, man. Like, people really be on here trying to tell me like that black is a American ethnicity or something, and it'd be so confusing. I'd be like, so here, let me just explain it to y'all how it was just taught to me, right? Black is a race. Race is a social construct that groups people by phenotypical traits, right? So black people are a race. So it generally means people from sub-Saharan Africa, darker skinned people who have certain phenotypical, our hair, our skin, eyes, things of that nature. Those are black people. Now, you can have different types of black people. You can have Nigerians. You could have people from Uganda. You could have people from Ethiopia. You could have people from Jamaica, Haiti. They're all part of the so-called African diaspora. So then people say, well, what about the Aboriginals of Australia? Are they black? And I think that is a little murky, but I think when you look at it, the genealogy there, you look at the phenotypical similarities, I think they are dark skinned, but they wouldn't be considered black under the same context that we are. Even though they face suppression and because of their darker skin, they're not black, but they are people of color. And it's not that complicated. So the other week when I said that Haitians and Caribbean people are black and everybody got on my case, it was a little weird. It's just like, where y'all getting educated at, bro? Like, who teaching y'all? And then I realized that a lot of these people get all their education off of the internet and they don't check sources. So I think, do some reading, read some books on it, and then come back to me with your opinions. But yeah, the diaspora wars, it's been crazy, man. I'm burned out on the discussion. It's like I talk with people, I engage, I listen to their mindless, unsensible arguments, and then it's just like, I'm an FBA, I'm Ados, um, I'm the real black person, you tethers, blah blah. And then they be like disowning me. They be like, you're not even black, you must be a Haitian because you love Haitian people. And I'm like, no, bro, we all part of the people are looking for reasons to be divided, y'all. And it's sad. It's like they want the division. And ultimately to me, that's just people looking for white supremacy. So let me read y'all something about how I feel about that. Since my marketing team says I don't be promoting the book enough. I'm just gonna give y'all a short little passage because I know all my friends on here, y'all supposed to be reading the book and y'all don't be reading because y'all don't ever be asking me no questions. So I'm on to y'all. All right. Addressing cultural dysfunction requires a process of healing, empowerment, and transformation within the community. This involves fostering a sense of pride, self-worth, and collective identity among community members. This will not happen without the strategic and intentional promotion of dialogue, critical consciousness, and positive community norms that counteract the internalized oppression and distrust perpetuated by systemic racism. Creating community engagement, activism, in leadership development spaces is imperative to develop the necessary faith in Black people's collective self-efficacy. The strategies highlighted in this book are intended to educate, engage, and mobilize community members while promoting collaboration, resilience, and sustainable progress. So that is just part of my Mel talk about she gonna start reading it soon. But yeah, that is in my closing chapter, and I'm talking about the way out of some of the problems we have is through intentional strategic action and healing divisions within the community. So I know one thing I learned when I came out here to Florida from California was that in South Florida, the Black Americans, the FBAs, if that's what they would have called themselves, they used to beat up, like violently, they would have beat up Haitian days, right? These are things that leave scars and cause division, these kinds of actions. People got called different names. There were times that people felt judged by, oh, I'm getting critiqued again. Hold on, y'all. Okay, I'm about to come back to that question, right? Um, People were getting judged, ridiculed because of their ethnicity within the Black race. And even Black Americans felt that there's competition or there was a judgment from people who traveled here and received benefits that were fought for by Black generations before them. I think that there may be real sentiments to that, but I think sometimes people are misguided about the nature of the civil rights movement, and they think that it was like all Black people went outside and fought for civil rights. It was a small group, and they weren't all just FBAs who did it. There were people from different demographics, and there were cultural movements all around the world happening simultaneously to the Black civil rights movement. So I think we need better education about what happened during civil rights, and then that might dispel a lot of these myths. But I say all that to say that there's all these reasons people are seeking out to be divided and to find the differences instead of looking for the similarities. We've all suffered under white supremacy. We're all being oppressed. We're all being not allowed to reach our full potential, and we all are having our identity defined by someone other than ourselves. So let's see what we got here. Okay. Facts. I'm a South Floridian, so you know about how they treated the Haitian people down there. You saw what was going on in the 80s and 90s. And to me, that's just Black on Black violence that is inexcusable. Let's see. You are not being fair to the genuine belonging feelings that FBA, ADOS, Black Americans want in cultural identity in the same way that Haitians have a distinct culture, Jamaicans, Nigerian, etc. Let me reflect on that. Let me sit with that. I'm not being fair to the genuine feeling that FBA, ADOS, and Black Americans want in a cultural identity. I'm not being fair because I am saying we need to be inclusive. But I don't say, okay, how would you, let me ask this question. If I showed you a group of Black people from the diaspora, how would you identify who was who? By looking at them. I want you to sit with that for a minute. What would make them different? What? Okay, so you say it's culture. Thank you. Okay. So what cultural, and this is, see, I wish my sis Dr. Mesker was on, because I think sometimes people who never not never, but people who are not well versed in anthropology and the cultural similarities between the different Black groups, it's hard to fathom that our cultures are not very different. There's a lot of similarities, and the things that are different are normally the things that are foreign, right? So, and here's the thing, right? the we have a different culture from California to Florida. So if we're just going to say that those cultural differences are what separate us and we all need a unique identification, go for it. But that shouldn't stop us being inclusive when it's time to solve collective problems that all of us are facing. So if you want to say, that the black people who live in Louisiana are different from the black French speaking people who live in Haiti, I mean, you can make that argument, but those people might have more similarities than you're going to find between a black person in Louisiana and a black person from, oh, there go my bro Theo. I like what he's saying. But okay, there's going to be more similarity between those two than you might find between black people in Louisiana and black people in North Dakota, right? Like, so cultures are going to change based off a region, but there's like surface level culture and then there's deep structured culture, and that's where we have these similarities. And I think it's important that especially for educated folks, that you revisit that if you ever got to take those African humanities classes and African American humanities and art, man. So, and here's the other thing, right? And I talk about this in the book when we talk about who is actually counted as black, and we be like, oh, like the 48 million, like that includes a lot of our numbers have grown as the black race. A lot of it is because of immigration. So y'all got to factor that too. So my bro here says, I'm Jamaican and FBA, but to a white racist cop, I'm a N-word, and they don't care about my lineage. My sister yeah, thank you, Theo. Spot on. My sister Johanna Marie says Black American culture is distinct, and we are part of the African diaspora and share ancestry and cultural markers with other diasporians. We are purposely being distracted from broad-reaching political unity that will create actual freedom through cultural war. I agree. That is an intentional distraction that is not new. It is exactly the antithesis of what Du Bois, Garvey, and so many of our Malcolm people who were before us, who were trying to say that we are not at our best isolated in a struggle against white supremacy on our own. I think if we are to look at collective approaches, which I'm very committed to, then I think okay. So I'm gonna deal with this, and then we're gonna move on, right? We have unity and still be prideful of our unique culture. Whose unique culture? Like, because again, are you talking about Black Americans in California, Black Americans in Detroit, Chicago, New York? We all have differences, and those differences are the variation is similar to what you'll see from if you Jamaicans and on the continent. You'll see. So how regional or regionally specific are you being with identifying these differences? Are you just saying because we're all under the American flag? So are we using that to identify us and separate us from the rest of the Black people? And I'm just trying to understand your logic here. Is that what separates us? That we speak English and they speak French? Because what happens is if you take people from the Caribbean, you take people from the continent and you put them here with us for 3 or 4 generations, again, how are you going to tell the difference? How will you know it? What cultural elements will be different? They're going to be absorbed into the American main culture, consumerism, what else? Voting, fast food, like you get absorbed into that, and disunity, like you get all the problems that come along with it, and then you start to have the same challenges we having. So you just said when we were talking about education that we need to go back to our African. I got you. You said we need to go back to our African oral traditions to solve the problem, but yet here when we talk about solving our problems, you're now calling out that we need to define ourselves strictly in a Americanized context, when sometimes the parts of us that are Americanized are some of our worst features, right? That is some of the biggest challenges that we have are the things that we picked up through the process of Americanization. Not all of it. Some of it is our survival tactics and our strategies, our storytelling has been modified. Our art has been modified in a way. But that capitalist element, that's from the colonization. Or you think that's just a natural part of that? We saw the fastest and farthest reaching advancements in the position of Black people when we shared a unified anti-colonial pan-African mindset. Anything that hinders that needs to fall away. They want to pretend they have African tradition different than Africans who are not American. Yeah, I think so. I think that's it right there, Mel. It still seems to be some kind of anti-Africanness and some kind of need, and I call this out, intra-ethnic othering, right? To be like, we are these Black people. They are not Black like us. Oh, not like us. Okay. People think I'm Haitian, Jamaican, Igbo, and Yoruba, Ethiopian. Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that I could say is unique about African people in the diaspora versus our brothers and sisters on the continent is that we normally are going to have a more diverse heritage. And that, for example, for me, I got Cameroonian heritage, I'm Mende, I have Yoruba heritage as well. And that's just because of the different Black people that make us up. But they swear we better than them. Nah, we're not better than nobody. Oh, oh yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying, Serenity. Hurt people hurt people. Let's kiss and make up. Can you explain what you meant when you said kiss your homeboys in the god damn it, he got me. All right, you're blocked, buddy. Get out of here. Gosh, you guys, how do y'all have time to just be on somebody live? It's crazy. Okay, but that's it for tonight, y'all. We out of here, man. I appreciate everybody coming through, talking through these issues with me. I'll be back next Monday, man. So let's get it. Oh, y'all, it just got good. Hold on, I might let y'all cook for a minute because I see the anti-Africanness is what unites the FBA, Hebrew Israelite mindsets. It just feels so obvious that these tactics to sow division, and we are falling for the okie dokie. Exactly. Thank you. We're gonna close on that one, Johanna. Everybody in Tallahassee, if you're still listening, I do want to announce on, let me see, July 17th at City Hall from 6 to 9:30 p.m. We'll be hosting Power Lab 850. This is going to be an event where we focus on building political apparatus here in Tallahassee, Florida, to address our local issues in our community. So we want to get to a point where we could hold politicians accountable, and we need you to come out and build power with us. So Power Lab 850, Tallahassee, Florida, City Hall, Thursday, July 17th. Check my Facebook page for Bruce Strobel if you want to learn more about it. Check out the flyer. But that's it for the evening, y'all. Have a good night.